Our party is getting ready to head into the city of Ank'Harel, and we're going to prep. So let's dig in. Before we get into our actual session prep, let's go over what I have prepared for Chapter 4. So every time I get into a new chapter, or I'm getting ready to run a new chapter, I reread the entire chapter and do so in more detail, looking for like NPCs, quests, secrets and clues, that kind of stuff. So let's show you what I've prepped for that. To find that in my Notion notebook, which there'll be a link for this in the description below if you're interested in coming and taking a look. So I go to Campaign Outline, and then down below, you just got Quick Glances, and then Chapter 4. Here are all my notes on Chapter 4. One thing that I'm going to add for my players is a city guide that was provided on Reddit, the Call of the Netherdeep subreddit. There's an Ank'Harel city guide, and it's about 29 pages, and it is just like a city pamphlet that you would find maybe in like a travel center or information center. It's got the list of all the districts. It's got some fun places that they can go and check out. I think it also has like some coupons and stuff like that, so that's kind of fun. I'm going to provide a link for this PDF for my players to open up and look at on their phones or whatever while we're playing the game. So that's my plan with that. But I'm doing that because I think it adds a lot of flavor and it's kind of fun. It'll also give them points of interest that they can go and explore the city, because Ank'Harel is pretty open world in comparison to what we've been doing so far, so I think having some direction for them will be very useful. This was provided by Hard on Reddit, and I'll provide a link for this in the description below, but thank you very much for this. This, I think, will go over really well with my players. Back to our notes from the book. Changes for this chapter, I'm actually not really planning on changing too much. If you remember from Bazzoxan, we added another encounter. I don't feel like any of that is necessary here. I may add in some character-specific side quests for my PCs. I may also add some quests from other factions into the current quest line of my party, depending on which faction they choose. We'll see how all that goes. Otherwise, I'm running this as is. Goals for my party. This is kind of what the book expects and what I hope I can convey to my party that their goals should be. Number 1 is to find Kael'Maro. I feel like that's hit home pretty well with my party. Number 2 is to help Alexian, get him freed. And then the last is to help their faction. So my party is going into Ank'Harel with no real faction. They have a pretty good relationship with Question. So my expectation is that they're going to want to join the Cobalt Soul with Question. That's why I've got their quest line here first. And this is just in the book. I've outlined each quest line for each of the 3 factions. So we've got the Cobalt Soul, which is the quest line that I expect them to follow. We've also got the Allegiance of Alsight, who is allies with the Cobalt Soul. So they may do a few missions here. And then there's the consortium of the Vermilion Dream, and I highly doubt that my party will be interested in this. They are very, very suspicious of Aloysia. Here I've just got a list of all the missions and a little brief snippet about each mission so that I can quickly reference this if I want. NPCs, this is some of the NPCs from the chapter. This chapter includes a gazetteer as well as all the missions, so it's a lot of NPCs. I wrote down some and then kind of stopped writing them all, but here's like some of them and just some notes on some of the more important NPCs in the chapter. And then in my NPC section of my Notion notebook, I've added some that are more specific and tailor-made to the Cobalt Soul line. Secrets and clues, these are something that I'm always looking for as I run through the chapter. There's just a bunch of different things that I want to drop to my players, and it can be dropped by anybody. I put in parentheses typically who in the book suggests these bits of information, but really it can come from whoever. Mostly it's just talking about the factions, giving them a little bit of history of Ank'Harel, and that kind of thing. So that's all here. I'm not going to read through all of those as well. And then transitions, this one's super easy. Normally I try to figure out a good way to transition between chapters so that goes smooth and I'm thinking about it. But this one, you literally, the missions just lead you into the next chapter, which is Kael'Maro, so it's pretty easy. Shouldn't have to worry about transitions. Now that we've got that all out of the way, I want to talk a little bit about the Gazetteer, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but in locations, I have added Ank'Harel, and then I've got the city guide link again from Reddit. I've got 2 maps, the DM version and the non-DM version. And then I've just got in each of the districts, I've got points of interest for each of these, and that as I'm reading through the chapter, I just insert these so that I have a quick reference. If they want to go to the Sigil district, I know that this is about learning. There's the excavation site here, and it's got some points of interest that I can explain to my players as I get there. So I think that's added some value. And the other thing that I did is I went to NPCs. I added an NPC card for each of the different factions. So there's the 3 main ones, the Allegiance of Alsight, Library of the Cobalt Soul, and the Consortium. And there's a few others that the chapter mentions that I've just kind of added some notes on. And if you open up, the Library of the Cobalt Soul, this is kind of what they're about. Reason, knowledge, truth. Shows where their headquarters are, who their leader is, some allies, opponents, how you can join them, and then kind of what they're doing right now. So I've got that for each of the different factions. I've also added in a few different NPCs that kind of will come up, and that's in the NPC section. So all of that information is just precursor to actually running things. It's things that will help me get a better understanding of what's going on in Chapter 4. So let's dig into our session prep. We'll go back here to Session 13. When we're doing our session prep, we review the characters. So I've got Chosen, a Bugbear Barbarian, Dimitri, a Gnome Fighter, Iris, Halfling Warlock, Jimmy, our Sea Elf Druid, and Trixie, our Human Artificer / Wizard. Our strong start. So at the end of the last session, my party had just finished the vision with Elixion in Betrayer's Rise. They had seen and convinced the rival party to help them and not help Aloysia. So Aloysia took off, collapsed the tunnel. That's where we left. So our start here is they're in the prayer site of Avandra. The friends from Jigao stand about 30 feet above them at the entrance of the room, and from behind them you hear the explosion followed by falling rocks. Our scenes for this session is the prayer site, and inside of this I've just noted down what the rival party has been up to in my game. My party and the rival party split at Jigao. The rivals were tasked with a mission from Elder Kolbu Kaz, who is head of the Goblin clan in Jigao, and he told them to go look into this rare red mineral that had kind of appeared in Jigao. Their search has led them a little bit all over the Wild Mount, but they ended up here. They began working with Aloysia in hopes of learning more about it because they ran into her at the Ready Room and overheard her talking a little bit about ruidium. We'll improvise any other questions that my party has for them, but that's just something to get me started and to get me thinking. I've also noted down kind of where each of the rival party members are at. So Io is worried that she may have lost the respect of her party because she's aligned with Aloysia. Dermot's worried about the stress Io's dealing with, is kind of overcompensating that as being extra nice to her. Galceriad feels underqualified to be dealing with what they have faced so far, kind of quieted down. And then Irvin is terrified of dying away from the beacon, but has chosen to stay with the party anyway. And Maggie is just trying to figure things out behind the scenes. She's very kind of stoic in my campaign, and she is trying to figure out the ties between the ruidium, the Jewel of Three Prayers, the visions, all those things that they have been doing. And then Question, who is with the party as well, but has not been taking place in any of the combat encounters, just wants to head back to Ank'Harel and report what she has seen to her superiors in the Library of the Cobalt Soul there. That's giving everyone some motivation to head to Ank'Harel. We'll see how that all interaction goes, but I expect that'll take some time of my session. And then the next, Friends of the Cobalt Soul from page 79 of the book. This is where everyone arrives in Ank'Harel using the teleportation tablets, I assume is what's going to happen. Then Question tells them that she needs to go back and report to her superior. She'll give them a sending stone and give them the map, and as well as the pamphlet, and say, all right, good luck, we'll see you guys later. I gotta go report, and I'll let you know what I find out. And then from there, it's pretty much up to them, my party, what they want to do, go explore the city or whatever else till the next day, where the first Cobalt Soul mission will take place, where Question just greets them, takes them back to their headquarters, the Cobalt Soul headquarters. When they get back to the headquarters, they'll meet Iwo, who will tell them that there's a spy, there's a suspected spy in the Cobalt Soul that they need to track down and figure out what's going on with. So that'll be the first Cobalt Soul mission. And then Cobalt Soul mission number 2, and I doubt we'll get to this, but maybe we will, who knows, is the Half-Baked Scheme. A couple days later, I think like a week later, Iwo reaches back out to them and says, hey, I've got something else that I need help with. There is rumors of this black market trade going on at Old Man Crux Bakery. We want you to go check it out and see what's being sold behind closed doors. Secrets and clues. These we talked about, I just copied and pasted from our Chapter 4 prep, but again, talking about Ank'Harel's history, the factions a little bit and their relationships with each other, and then also talking about Kael Morrow and how it's below the city. I don't know if they'll discover that information or not this session. We'll see. NPCs. Here's the rival party, and then we've got Question, Iwo Zalar, who is the Cobalt Soul, and then Lauren Ophitis, who's the spy. And then monster stat blocks for them, and then treasure. We have sending stones and a ruidium short sword that they can potentially get in the second Cobalt Soul mission. But that's pretty much it for my session prep. I'm feeling pretty comfortable with this. I'm really excited to see what happens and see what my party does. Really, really excited to get into Ank'Harel and do a big change of scenery for my party. It's been pretty railroady for the most part, and once we get to Ank'Harel, it is a wide world of possibilities, and I'm kind of excited to see what they choose to do. But thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate it. We'll catch you in the next one.